Okay, so now that we learned how to use Marvelous Designer's tools, it's time to get into the heart of Marvelous Designer itself, and that is creating garments. So before I can tell you that, well, I guess if you already watched my Marvelous Designer tutorials, you can pretty much skip this part. It's pretty much the same thing. But if you're brand new to it, we can keep on going. Sorry, I should have mentioned that in the last video. Okay, so before we begin on making clothes, I got to give you a little bit of backstory on Marvelous Designer because it'll help you later on, better understand it. So when Marvelous Designer was around, when it first came out, it was designed as a tool to help tailors test their patterns out without having to waste materials. So the ideal was when you're making a pattern and you're curious about whether or not it would work and how much material you would need, you would use this program and draft your pattern in a 2D window over here, and then it will simulate over here in a 3D window, and it will tell you how much material it was, how it looks, and you can fine tune your materials and your patterns until it got to a place you want without you as this tailor having to waste your materials. And then you could just print it out and then say this is how it wants, and then have your garments right there. However, some of us 3D nerds saw this and was like, oh, we can make clothes with this. And so Marvelous Designer totally shifted its thing. Barbie man. Hang on one second. Okay, sorry about that. My Discord was going off. Okay, so basically, after some 3D guys saw it, we saw the potential of it, and then Marvel's Designer totally changed their stance, and now it's mostly made for making 3D clothes. So, but the core basics of the program still stay within Marvel's Designer, meaning that if you are a tailor of some kind and you know how to make clothes in real life using real sewing patterns, you can apply those patterns, those pattern making skills here into Marvel's Designer and recreate your favorite clothes using patterns that you already have. Now, people like me, on the other hand, who have absolutely no skill in pattern making, despite being a apprentice seamstress, we can just kind of half it and draw the general shape of the garment and then sew it together, and Marvel's Designer will calculate it and create a garment based on that. Now this method works on pretty much like 97% of all garments, minus a few dresses and a few types of skirts. So basically, if you want to make clothes, all you really have to do is just draw the shape of the clothes that you want and then sew it together, and then Marvel's Designer will try to piece them together and make your clothes for you. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing here, is pretty much drawing the shape of the garment we want to make, sewing it together, and then exporting it out. Alright, so now that we have that out the way, let's begin with the very basic of the basic, and that basic is a t-shirt and a pair of pants. I always say that once you learn how to make a t-shirt and a pair of pants, you can pretty much get the idea of Marvelous and make anything. So I'm going to show you how to do it so you can, get your feet wet and say, hey, I make 3D clothes now. So we're going to scroll our mouse wheel in on the 2D window, and I'm going to start with what's this button called? The Create Polygon button. And we're going to start by creating our first dot on the center the center line, or our fold line. Now we call this the center line because, as you see, it's going right down the center of our avatar, and it's like pretty much where a good place to make folds at. So let's start right here on the center line, and we're going to make our first dot. Let's see, how do I say this? On how deep you want your t-shirt to be, your collar to be. So we're going to start right here below the neck, and that's going to be our first dot. Then we're going to take it over diagonally to its shoulder. Then we're going to go down to like the tip of the shoulder, I guess, like maybe here. Now, this is different for me because it's in an A pose. I hate A pose. Alright, so next would be how long you want your sleeves to be. Then how tight you want your armhole to be, the sleeve to be against your arm. Then you're going to go up the armpit. Then the next dot is going to be how long you want the shirt to be. Then we're going to hold down shift, and then we're going to drag it over to the center line, and then we're going to close the pattern out by going back to the first dot that we made, and then that's the first half of your t-shirt pattern. Now, because we're at the center line, we can just unfold it and then it'll create the other half of it. So take your white arrow, the edit pattern, hold it over the edge of the center line crease right here, right click, and then unfold. And then now we have the front part of our t-shirt. Now our next one is we're going to copy, right click on the pattern, press copy, and then paste. And now we have the back pattern. Now we want to make sure we don't have a dip in the back of our neck right now. So we're going to select the center dot here and then press delete. And now we have the back part of our pattern. Now one thing you have to know when making clothes in Marvelous Designer is that whenever you have to put something behind your avatar, you have to flip the pattern over. If you don't flip it, when you import it into Second Life, your back will be invisible. So unless you're trying to make an invisible back and only the front, you want to make sure that you flip your garments. So to flip it, I'm going to come over to the 3D window, and I'll make the screen a little bit bigger for you. And you're going to right click on your back, and you're going to select flip horizontally, and you'll see it turns black. That means that the wrong side is facing us and the right side is facing out, where I click it should. And then once it's selected, you just put it right behind your avatar like this, positioning it as best you can behind it. There we go. Now I want to make sure that my clothes are pretty close to the body. You don't want to make it so close that your body goes through it. You just want to make it close so it doesn't slide off you and go onto the floor. Alright, so once we have that done, it's time to start talking about sewing, which is like the most exciting part about Marvelous Designer. Alright, so what we want to do is turn our attention up to the top toolbar in the 3D window, and you'll see this button right in the middle, and that is our segment sewing button. We're just going to press that button and then turn our attention back to our pattern, and you're going to hold your mouse on the edge of the edge of your pattern. So you see a line shows up on the edge and it's nice and highlighted. So we're going to click on it, and then you're going to click on the opposite edge like this. And when you do it, you'll see a bunch of lines come out across like this. Now don't worry if your lines are a different color than mine. Marvelous Designer generates these color lines randomly, so it may be red on yours or pink on there or green. Mine just happen to be blue, so it doesn't matter. As long as there are some lines going from here and there, then you did it right. Don't worry about the color. Speaking of these lines are actually called seams, and this is what tells Marvelous Designer what to do. It tells you what these seams represent is us telling Marvelous Designer, take this edge and that edge and then bring them together. So you want to make sure that these edges are always straight, because if you are sewing and your edges are crooked like this, twisted up, that's telling Marvelous Designer, take this edge and that edge and then twist it up in the middle like this. And that can cause some severe glitching in your garments, and it will totally not be the right effect. So you always want to make sure that your lines are straight. Now if you happen to do this and you're wondering how do I correct these lines, you have two options. One, you could press Ctrl Z and undo it and then re-sew your lines like this and then make them straight. But in some cases you may have already sewn and you realize that your lines are crooked and you want to fix it because you can't Ctrl Z all the way back. So to fix this, you just go to the button next to it on the left and it says Edit Seam Lines. Bring your mouse down, right click on the seam line in question, and then select Reverse Seam Line, and that will straighten out your lines. So now all you have to do is go back into segment sewing and sew up all your edges together to make your t-shirt. Now you want to make sure that you don't sew the armhole here. You want to make sure that stays open so your arm goes through. And actually I just made some crooked lines there. No crooked lines, everything must be straight. So let's make some nice straight clothes. Alright, so everything's all sewn together, and of course you want to leave the bottom open so that your body goes through it. And same thing about your neck hole, you want to leave that too. So once we have everything all put together, we're just going to hit the play button and start the simulation. And as you see, we instantly have a t-shirt. Now I'm not sure if this is a proper collar for a men's shirt, but if you feel like it's too pointy and you want to adjust it, we can pause the simulation real quick. There we go, and make this. Alright, so we can go over here to the 2D window, start the simulation, delete this middle line here, and then we use our curve button
and pull it down and create a more rounded edge so it looks a little less, what you call it, pointy. So that's how you make a t-shirt. We're going to give this t-shirt its own color so it looks a little bit better when we're working on it. No too much red. A nice soothing green, mint. Now, I bet you're wondering about the UV maps. Like, how do I unwrap this t-shirt once it's done? Now, don't worry about that. All you have to do is just this. This is your UV map for the t-shirt. When you create patterns in a 2D window, the 2D window is going to be your UV mapping for your garments. So you don't have to unwrap this once you export this out into Blender. It's already done. So see all that time saving? Way better than making it from blocks. Okay, so now that we have our t-shirt, we're going to move on over and then make a pair of pants. I'm just going to select this and push it up out of my way real quick. Alright, so to make pants, it's pretty much the same thing as the t-shirt. We're going to draw the general shape of a pair of pants. So let's start at the top of, like, right here at his waist. And then we're going to go down to the crotch. And I'm going to hold down shift so that I have the snap guide to help me make some nice straight lines. And we're going to make a backwards L against the leg. And then our next dot is going to be how long you want your pants to be. And then we're going to make your leg over. And it's going to go up, up, up to where we made our first line. You could, if you feel like it's stretching too much, you can put a break right here on this, right there on this thigh. And then go up to that line, the next one. Across and meet our first line. And then hold down shift again and then meet our first dot. So that gives us a pants pattern. Rearrange, please. Now, once we have our pants, we could just do the same thing like we did with the t-shirt. Select the center line, right click, and unfold. Now, before we start duplicating, we need to delete this middle dot because this middle dot is going to cause us to have more sewing if we leave it, because then we'll have to sew this edge and that edge, and if we delete this, it's just one edge. So, yay, saving time. So now that we have our pants, we can right click on copy and then paste, and then we'll have another pair of pants. And now, just like our t-shirt, we need to select the pattern that goes on the back and then flip it horizontally, slide it on back like so, and then start our sewing of the pants, selecting the edges and making sure that our seams are nice and straight. Flip, come on, in there. And there we go. So everything is nice and set. And like we were before, we're going to just position it close to it so that it's nice and close. Now with the pants, you always want to put it up a little bit higher than the actual butt. You don't want to put it down here because they may slide down. I always put my pants up a little bit higher. And then if they need to go down some more, we just pull them down because it's always easier. I always say it's easier to pull down some pants than it is to pull them up. So we just do this and then we press play and then you see we have a pair of pants. So that's how you make a basic pair of pants in here. Now if you want pockets and zipper flaps and all the rest of that jazz, that is something to experiment on your own. I usually just make leggings and skirts. Don't really make pants. So you're on your own with that one. Okay, anyway. So now that we have our pants and t-shirt created, it's a good time to talk about layers. See, Marvelous Designer allows us to create our clothes in layers. As you see, the pants right now the pants and the shirt are on the same layer. And when I put the pants on like this, I create the t-shirt first and then the pants set on top of the t-shirt, so you get a nice tucked in pant, right? So let's say you want to have your t-shirt on the outside of your shirt and your pants underneath. You have to just put your shirt on a different layer. So how we work with layering is first you want to select all the parts of the pattern for this garment you want to be on top, which is just these two, front and back. Then we go over to our properties editor and select fabric and scroll down to the very bottom where it says layer, and you can see that it's on 0.
So I'm going to press it from 0 to 1, and you see your shirt will pop out, and then you'll have your t-shirt on top and your pants on the bottom. Now, same thing if you wanted to have your shirt on top, your pants on top and your shirt underneath, you would just put that on a higher layer than the shirt. So since that one was 1, we'll just put that on 2, and you see now your pants are on top of your shirt tucked in. Now, I don't want that. I just want the shirt on top of the pants because that's usually the style. And another thing I forgot to mention that is if you feel like your shirt and stuff is too tight against the body and you don't want that, all you have to do is just stretch the pattern out, and you can add more, looseness to it. I think a better way to do that is by using the black one and then stretching it out this way. Give it a second and then rearrange the pattern, and you see it's a lot looser. You have to fix it here a little bit better. Well, it would work better if it wasn't, if I wasn't in a rush to do this. I'm already past my 15-minute mark. So you just stretch it and then pause it and then rearrange patterns, which is what I should have done. I never knew what causes this to look like that sometimes. So just rearrange it back here. Then we select this one, back, rearrange this pattern, put that right there. Then press play. You see, now it's a little bit looser on the body. It is technically looser. You see, we don't have as much abs in there like we did before. And you see that the shirt is looser. Although, increasing the size and stuff of your pattern works better if we were to put the sleeves on their own thing and not, have a shirt bodice and then a sleeve separate. That method, that works a lot better than this all-in-one pattern. But, this is just for the sake of beginners, and that's another tutorial that I have to work on. So hopefully you'll check out that later. But anyway, we have our t-shirt, we have our pants. It's time to export this and then rig it and texture it and, get this tutorial over with. So what we want to do now is export our garment out. And before we export, it's worth noting that you really should keep a nice space, keep your 2D window nice and clean, give everything its own space, because in case something happens in Blender, like I said, this is your UV map, and you have to select your pattern. You want to give yourself enough room to put the selection bar, the selection box between this without clipping the other patterns. So you want to give everything their own space. And I know that sounds confusing right now, but trust me, when we get to that part, you'll see what I mean. So make sure everything is nice and clean, have its own space, and then we're ready to export. So what I want you to do is to go to the top where it says File, and then Export, and you want to export it as an OBJ. And then we're going to go to our project folder and name it Simple Outfit. And then when it asks you to export, we're going to just press the little M for scale. Then we're going to check unified coordinates, remove collapsed cloths, and then we only want cloth shape selected. We don't want OBJ avatar shape because that'll export another model of Jake, and we don't need that. So we have the cloth shape, and we're going to hit OK. And now we just go back into Blender and start our rigging process. So I'll see you guys over in our next video where I show you how to rig. Oh, wait, beforehand, we can actually say, if I tell you about saving. So let's say you created this and you want to send this along to your friends and create a little community of MD Jake stuff. So what you want to do is go to File, Save As, Project, and you always want to save your stuff as a project file, never a garment one, because when you save as a project, it gives you the garment, your pattern, and the model, everything loaded in there, so you can just open it up and work. So you want to just save it as project and call it a basic outfit again, and hit OK, and then it saves this entire environment, so you can just load it up and then make modifications to it if you feel like you want to. Alright, so that's that, and that's how you save, export, and thus we're done with Marvel Designer. We're going to go over to Blender and then start our rigging. Yee!